Hi, this is the seventh scenario in Module 8, implementing incremental or delta load without using CDC, change data capture. And here we will use the ADO.NET connection in the first method. In the second method, we will use the OLEDB connection. So what is incremental load? Incremental load is extracting only the new or modified data since last execution of the package and sync that data into the destination based on some date time column. A single package will be used for full load and incremental load, which will be controlled by control flow precedence constants and the SSIS expressions. So in the same package, in the single package, we will implement to perform the full load first time and then incremental load after first time. To extract the new or modified data, we will use the dynamic SQL command, and so we will look into how to prepare that dynamic SQL command. ADO.NET connection is specific with specific properties we will use in this scenario. In the next scenario, we will use the OLEDB destination. And why we will use the OLEDB destination, we will discuss in that scenario. So let's jump into the demonstration. So before demonstration, let me tell you why we are not using the change data capture. Actually, to use the change data capture, it needs some configuration changes in database, and it works with LSN log sequence number, and it requires to enable the CDC change data capture on database and also on table, which is the extra burden on the database, which is not appropriate in production environments, and the owners of database doesn't allow this. So that is why we are not going to use the change data capture. However, you can use the change data capture if you are allowed, or the change data capture can be enabled on the database and database table. But in this scenario, we will look the custom implementation of incremental load. So let's jump into the demonstration. So we have already prepared the package to implement this incremental load. So for that, you can see there are couple of tasks which are used to perform and implement this incremental load. So let me first tell you, it will start from this execute SQL task, which is get refresh details. And we have some script task for logging, and then data flow task for full load and incremental load. And then we can use further transformation or further processing of that data, and then set refresh details. So these two are the important thing, how to prepare the framework to support the incremental load. So let's look into that, and then we will come on this package for further details. So for that, we have to prepare some framework using either the SQL or the files, flat files that we can use to make the process of incremental load. but I have used this database table because this is easy to handle and maintain and manage. So for that, we have to have a database where we can create a table, something like ETL tracker, whatever name you want, you can give. And couple of stored procedures will be used. Otherwise, you can use the flat SQL statements there, but I will prefer the stored procedures. And in this course, you have seen how to call the stored procedures using the ADO.NET connections and the OLEDB connections both. So the table is ETL tracker and it has the package name and last execution date and is incremental refresh. I have used these three uh, columns to implement this functionality, and we will look into this. So ETL tracker will have an entry for the package and its execution. And third column is incremental refresh, which is of with type. It represents if true, then do the incremental refresh. If false, then do the full load. So let's look into this table. If we have any data, it is empty. Okay. So when we will execute the package first time, there will be an entry. So how that entry will be made? We have a stored procedure. Make refresh detail entry. It is taking the package name and varchar 200 and last execution date time of date time type, two parameter as input. It takes, and then based on some condition, if the package if the entry for this package exists, then update that entry for this package with the last execution date that is coming from the parameter. Otherwise, if there is no entry for this package first time the package is running, then insert a record with package name, last execution date time, and 1, the true for is incremental refresh. So if it is true, it means now do the incremental load. Okay, so we have made an entry, and then how to get the details for the package. So when the package will start, we will have to query the refresh details, whether do the incremental refresh or the full load. So for that we have the get refresh detail stored procedure, and it is taking the package name as parameter, and inside this we have the logic to check if there is an entry for this package, then query the table ETL tracker and return the package name, last execution date time is incremental refresh, and a customized column which is named as refresh from date time. So since it will be the date based on incremental refresh. If it is incremental refresh, then since last execution date time, otherwise the 1st January of 1900, which is not appropriate in any database, in transactional database to have that entry. And if the record doesn't exist for this package, then we are preparing a custom select statement there. So it will return the package name from the parameter and the 1900 date for execution date time, and 0 means full load as incremental refresh is incremental refresh, right? And then the refresh date time that we are preparing using the case statement, but if record doesn't exist, we are hard coding it. So these are the two stored procedure we will use to make an entry and get the refresh detail. There is two more that I will discuss when it comes on when we comes on that part. Okay, so let's look into the package. In package B, I starting with execute SQL task, and this its name is get refresh details. So we have called a stored procedure, execute stored procedure name with package name as input parameter, and it returns some results. So how it returns? If we execute this package get refresh details, the package name is, this is the package name that I had already copied there. So if we execute this command, we will get a result something like this. So it returns 4 columns and 1 row. So in this execute SQL command, SQL task get refresh details, we have called this stored procedure and we have mapped the parameter like this. Remember in ADO.NET Connection Manager, we have to reference the parameters with parameter name. So we are using the system variable package name to pass as a package name. Direction is input, its data type is string. It returns a result. So we have result set single row, and in result set we have mapped all 4 columns with our variables. I have already created these variables. Let's look into those. We have all these 4 variables, and additional variable is SQL increment. I will describe this later. So we have called this stored procedure and we have retrieved these columns in variables. Then we have the script task to log some messages. So we will see what is there in some time. So we have used these expressions in precedence constants. So for that we have 2 pipelines there. One is for load, full load, load data full load, load data incremental load. So how these pipelines will be evaluated and executed based on these precedence constants. So in this precedence constant editor, we have used the expressions and constants. The value should be success, and we have the expression is incremental refresh equal to false. It means if this variable has the value false, means not to do incremental load, do the full load. And we have the logical end for expression and constant. So in this case it will go to this uh, pipeline. Otherwise we have another precedence constant for the incremental load. In this precedence constant we have used the expression and constant, and value should be success, and expression again that variable is incremental refresh equal to true. In the previous one we have checked whether it is false, and same the logical end. So this is how we have configured it to either go to this pipeline for full load or go to this pipeline for incremental load using the precedence constants and the expression. And then we have the data flow for full load and data flow for incremental load. The For full load we have an SQL statement there, and there is no where condition or something filter on this table. We are reading these columns, that's it. These are the columns, and we can load into the staging. I have simulated this using the multicast transformation. I am not interested to load into the actual table. This is just for demonstration purpose, so I have used the multicast as destination. So we will look into the data flow task for incremental load. So for that, we will use this incremental SQL incremental command. This is the command that we have written for reading the data, and how we are using this I will tell you. So we have this modified data, modified column. So this is the column we will use to identify the new data or the um, modified data or changed data. So we have written the part of the SQL in this SQL command. Modified is null or modified is greater than equal to then the cast, and the rest part of this command we will use using the SSIS expression. So where is that expression? We have the ADO.NET source inside this data flow task and conditional split and then insert update. I will describe that later. So we have to right click on this data flow and go to this expressions, and you will see when you click on this three ellipses box, you will see there is a dialog box or window where we can find out the corresponding property. So we have this SQL command there and the expression. To write the expression, we have to open this expression builder, and here we have written the command to prepare the dynamic SQL. So this is the SQL incremental variable which is having the part of SQL, and we have this expression also to use the refresh from date time. So since what time we have to read the data, we will use this as date time, and the cast was used in this SQL incremental. So if we evaluate expression, you will see it has prepared the complete SQL statement. So we had this part in the SQL increment command variable, and this part was appended by the expression. Okay, so I have the default value for this variable refresh from date, so it is there, and now the SQL is complete. So this is the place where we will write the expression to prepare the command, and it directly assigns to the ADO net source and the SQL command, and it will appear inside this miscellaneous, the first property. So it will show the prepared command there. So every time we will execute this package, this expression will be evaluated and this dynamic SQL will be generated. So if we go into this and ADO.NET source, it has the SQL command. We had provided the value of this SQL command through the property of data flow task. So it automatically uh, generates the commands there. We don't have to edit this command, and it produces these columns. We can use these columns down the stream. In the control flow, we have checked whether the modified is null. If it is null, it means it should be the new record. Otherwise, it is modified record. So we have configured the conditional split using some condition to identify whether it is new record or the modified record. And then we have used the multicast transformation as destinations. So we can perform the further operations down the conditional split. For insert, we would need to insert the record using any destination, ADO.NET destination or OLEDB destination, whatever we want, we can use. And for modified record, we can use the OLEDB command to either modify or to perform some other operations. Okay, so this is how we can configure this data flow task for incremental load using the SQL command variable and the expression. So we will prepare the SQL command, complete SQL command using the variable and SSIS expression and its data flows properties. And then we can perform, let's suppose we have loaded this into the staging using the both uh, data flow task, either the full load or the incremental load, and then we can further perform some operations, and then we have the set refresh details. So in set refresh detail we have called that make refresh detail entry, and it takes the package name and the last execution date time, and it is using the ADO.NET connection manager, and it doesn't return any result because it inserts a record in the table. So to pass the value of these parameters, we have to map the parameter, and you can see in ADO.NET connection manager we reference the parameters by parameter name. So in query we have these parameter name, and we have passed the package name system variable for package name, and the start time system variable for last execution date time, and their direction is input. In result set there is no result. So it will, after execution at last, it will insert a record for this execution, current execution. So let's look into the database. We don't need this. For now we don't have any record there, and let's execute this package. You saw that the get refresh detail was executed. It extracted some values using this get refresh detail stored procedure, and it returns 4 columns, and we have logged these 4 columns value using this script task. So let's look into this. These are the 4 values. Is incremental refresh is false, means do the full load. Last execution date time is 1900, refresh from date is 1900. I had used that same expression in C sharp for preparing this SQL statement just to print what will be the output. And then it went through this full load and it read the 12 records, and we can insert those records into the destination. And again we had applied some transformation. We are not interested in this. Let's still look. I have simulated some operation there, and then it made an entry in the ETL tracker table using this execute SQL task. So let's see if there is any entry. Yes, now it has an entry. Okay, and again if we execute, then it should go to this another pipeline incremental load, because in the ETL tracker it has an entry. Now first time it was loaded and did the full load, and now incremental load is enabled. So execute this package, and you see that it went through this incremental load pipeline. So again we have logged some values using this script task. Let's look into this. So see, is incremental refresh is true, last execution date time is the date time of last execution. Refresh from refresh from the date and time of the last execution, and this is the actual SQL statement that was prepared by this data flow task and ADO.NET source SQL command using the variable SQL variable and the expressions. So inside this there is no data because we have not neither inserted new record nor modified the data. Okay, so if we again execute this, it will go through the incremental load. So let's do some insertion in this table. So we will insert two records successfully and we will modify a record. Okay, so it's I am modifying the modified date. You can see previously it was 128. No, it was not 128. So we had modified the, actually we have updated or inserted the modified date because it has, it was, okay, let's see.